Oh, now we have to.
I
wait.
found
Weren't-
Rick.
weren't-
Hey,
what
Rick.
were we doing before?
Oh, I'll wait till work.
We've been waiting.
And doesn't she?
Sick of not being around me.
I'll take it. Like, every time she says that, I'm like, she's lying. She's
Okay,
only
I believe we are
wants to
now,
be older.
we're on the internet, guys.
All right.
Okay, I'll call this
Everybody
meeting
behave.
together of the planning board of the town of Rochester, shop meeting of October 25th. We'll start with the pledge of allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Changes to the order of business today, or what's going on tonight, rather, is Nicole is off to Florida. She went to Disneyland, Disney World, whatever that place is in Orlando. Disney World. And so Christina is going to be here in her place tonight from the town offices. Assistant town clerk.
Deputy.
Deputy. Okay, that's
Yes.
even more.
Good, nice time.
And also the Malatesta project, got a call from both Heather and Barry that both of them are sick, and so they bowed out of tonight. So, and one of the applicants was planning on coming, so we got a hold of him, and it's just not going to be on tonight's agenda. We'll move it to November 8th instead. We'll go through it. So that means we have the whole meeting to go through the DeJager project.
Can I ask you a quick question though?
No, not
about
until I'm finished. So we'll go through the DeJager project tonight, and we'll also go through some of the recommendations that we've been trying to do all along. Things that members of this board recommended that we take a look at, change, adjust, whatever. So we'll do that. We have a roll call, and then you can go, Liz.
Chair Jones,
Here.
Mr. Zarowski,
Here.
Ms. Lindstrom,
Here.
Mr. Williams,
Here.
Mr. Grasso,
Here.
Mr. Pinsky.
Here.
Ms. Maloney, absent,
Absent with excuse.
and alternate Zach. I know you're. do I have to
Zach
call-
Jarvis.
Jarvis.
Yes.
I call him, right?
Yes,
Okay.
he's here.
Zach's.
You had a reasonable facsimile. And also note that our attorney is in our planning board consultant.
Yep.
Liz excellent. Okay, Liz, what did you want to ask?
I'm wondering if after Jager, can we quickly circle back on Malatesta, because my suggestion would be to do a write-up since I'm almost done with the review. No?
No,
Okay.
I don't think it's useful. We'll just be talking to
That
each other.
answers my question.
I'd rather have the applicant here,
Good.
all
Okay.
right? Or the applicant's representative. I think that works a lot better. So, it could be an early night or not.
Yes. It's gonna be
So we have
all
with us Nadine Koenig from Peak. Thank you, Peak
yeah.
Engineering.
And also with me is Ann Davis from Peak. The applicant did say he was going to be here, so hopefully
Okay.
if he's just running late. haven't
He'll
heard.
join us when he gets here. So what we're going to do tonight with Nadine then is to allow her to give you an overarching presentation of the project. There are only two sets of maps.
I
in
actually
front
have
of you.
another set with Pierre.
Okay.
if somebody needs it.
So the map that's, this map right here in front of Patrick, and the map in front of Zorian and Maud are the new maps. In front of Maren and Liz is two sets of two maps, actually, or is it three?
No, this is true.
Two. Under the conservation subdivision, we're able to ask for the project to be done in accordance with what the zoning is in this area. This is AR3. So the applicant is taking advantage of the conservation subdivision concept to set aside some land, about 42 acres, in a conservation easement, and pushing all the houses in one particular area to concentrate the building there.
Total again?
Sorry?
90, 93?
92, I think. it was.
93.432.
Okay. The other map, I asked Nadine before this meeting to come up with, and she already had it, a traditional subdivision map, assuming no conservation subdivisions, assuming that the 3 acres applies at least to each and every parcel. And she had done it already, so I asked her to bring that so we could observe that. Short of that, you got my email, I guess it was yesterday, where I mention some of the things that I had concerns with or questions that I had. I'm sure you will have more. I hope you all read the conservation subdivision section in the town subdivision code. 125 dash something or another, 23, 123, and 24, 25, 26, 7, 8, and 9. So I hope you've had an opportunity, and if not before this meeting, then after this meeting, because we have a lot of work to do here. So with that, just by way of preface, Dean, I'll give the floor to you.
Thank you. So, so as we already discussed, this is about 93 acres. It is, and I don't know if anybody's been here long enough to remember the subdivision Mountain View Stables,
Yeah,
but this
can I
is,
interject right there already? You
I know
do
where
it.
you're going. Yep.
Subdivision or re-subdivision of lands. The action of an applicant to replace an approved subdivision plat with a change or improved one. Such application is to be treated in the same manner as an original plat, except that if the parcels involved are owned by more than one party, or if rights have been given to others, all parties involved must be co-applicants or agree to the re-subdivision before it can be processed by the planning board. That is our definition. Definitions by which we go with.
Of
But was this section a portion of the subdivision?
That
This-
is what,
this was the remaining lands of the subdivision. It was referred to as remaining lands under one owner, and it was sold to one owner.
But it was remaining land, and it didn't have a subdivision lot
It
number.
did not have a subdivision lot number. No, it did not do that at all. And even in the deed and the road maintenance agreement, it's referred to as remaining lands and out in the
Right.
stables, spade, whatever.
Right,
And since the last phase for whatever it was, there was a lot line adjustment with the homeowner here.
Mhm.
So there was that, but other than that, this has been the same remaining lands in the original subdivision.
so that's okay. We don't have to worry about
yeah,
that.
we're okay.
Okay.
We're okay.
So 93 acres, remaining lands, Mountain View Stables. This property has frontage on Lucas Avenue, substantial frontage, and it does have 50-foot frontage onto Peninsula Lane, which is a private road, which also comes off of Rondout Lane off of Lucas Avenue. I know this has come up in conversation with neighbors. We've even spoken to the neighbors. This property does have the right to access Rondout Lane to Peninsula Lane to access this piece, along with the lots from future subdivisions. It's how it's written in the deed and in the road maintenance agreement. So, and just so you know that we did speak to a neighbor because they had concerns and got them in contact with the owner as far as beginning to become part of the homeowners association, because that was an issue. So hopefully they're working that out.
the existing homeowners association,
Exactly.
just for, is it a homeowners association or a road maintenance agreement?
It's both.
They're both, yeah.
Yeah, there's both. I'm
So,
not a lawyer, so I really don't know what the difference.
so as long as
between
you
this-
brought it up, so you're proposing then that this new road be part of that old road maintenance agreement?
No, it will have its own, but all the property for the subdivision will also be part of that road. maintenance.
You have to pay road maintenance to that.
Exactly.
Not to be confused with the road maintenance agreement for this road, nor the homeowners association that has to be done
Right,
for
this
this.
will have its own as well.
So the
Right.
people that in theory would buy this will be in two HOAs. They've been the HOA of the Peninsula Lane Gang,
The road maintenance.
Road
just the road
maintenance
maintenance
agreement.
agreement of,
What about vice
Peninsula?
versa?
What's that?
Like, what about vice versa? If
No.
we're, no,
No, the other people will not be responsible for this.
Even though they're traveling over the.
You're
new
using
road.
one
If they do.
subdivision to get
If they
into
do,
another.
But they don't need to.
Well,
they don't have to,
they don't have to.
They can.
They can't, exactly.
but the other people could also. The people in the
Yeah,
existing subdivision
Could
could use
also,
the
you could
new
use the
road,
new road.
but they would
Or you
not.
could use both.
They would
Just
not have
driving in
to-
circles.
Okay, so just to be clear in my mind, and the board's mind legally, the discussion about being part of the homeowners association for the existing homeowners association is not the purview of this board.
Yeah, no.
What is the
and-
purview of this board is the new homeowners association to maintain conservation subdivision and the new road maintenance
Actually,
agreement.
it's really just the roads and how, they can arrange it how they'd like to, so far as whether maybe one property owner is gonna be in charge of the roads and everyone's gonna pay that property owner. But the logical way is to do a homeowners association.
Right.
But the homeowners association, under the conservation subdivision code,
Has to do
is
with
also
conservation.
responsible for
Unless they.
the
get someone else
maintenance
to
of
take it.
drainage
Right, there's gonna be a-
facilities and all that other stuff.
right.
Okay,
Right, says membership in any HOA to which open space be dedicated shall be mandatory for each property owner
Yep.
within the subdivision's excessive.
so could I just ask a legal, not to extend, Mary Lou needs to get home to watch again.
No, it's okay. It's all right.
Not to extend this. to-
I told
to-
them if the Rangers lose, because I missed the third period, it's on you guys.
Well, okay, so anyway, I
hang on, I
just
just
wanted to
wanna
bring
ask-
up the access.
Can I just, that's
'Cause I
great.
know, I didn't know if anybody had heard any rumors.
The, yeah, we have heard a lot of rumors, but you cleared it up. On the, I forgot what I was gonna ask you. It'll come back to me.
Okay.
On the road
Proceed.
maintenance agreement.
Yeah, it was, but
I have looked over the deed, which gives them the rights of way, and it does say in there that these folks, as the new owners, are gonna have to pay into that for the existing roadways. I am satisfied with all of that.
Okay.
And yeah, they'll have a homeowners association, should you guys approve this, and it's gonna say, here's all these things that, and I'll,
is that meant that, here's my question, is a homeowners association or the rules around the maintenance of that association defined by New York State, by the
they're
Secretary
gonna
of
be
State?
defined, but it's not like a condo, it's a little
Okay.
bit different. They're going to define what their homeowner association does.
And who's responsible for what?
Well, it's
What
weird.
Right, it's gonna,
officers?
there's gonna be something that goes to everyone with every lot purchase, that it's gonna be recorded in the county clerk's office, and it's gonna have all the rules
So you could have
and
some,
all
of-
the responsibilities.
probably not this one, but you can have some of them. An HOA in New York State that could be everybody's mailbox needs to be exactly like
Right.
this.
The houses have
exterior
to
of
be
your
painted
house
the
needs to
same
be
way.
painted
No
exactly that
clothesline.
way.
Driveway's gotta be paved, whatever.
Clotheslines, your driveways need to be orange. Exactly.
You gotta have
So-
your lights on at night,
Right.
garages, cars in the garage. I've lived in one. I know all
Yep,
about it.
exactly. So it can be as incredibly
You
restrictive.
can't have any small yelpy dogs.
Right, no dogs,
Yeah.
no
Yeah, there
campers
was
No
outside.
no
yeah.
truck,
trucks
what color
parked in
your.
the- no
houses
trucks in the
can
driveway,
be.
Pick up the
exactly.
dog poop, you know.
Do
Or
we
it can
have-
be,
Do we have an
we're all
opportunity?
gonna contribute to keeping our stormwater things in order and our
Right.
conservation.
Do we have an
areas.
opportunity to weigh in on that homeowners association?
We
Because
have the opportunity to make sure that it includes all of the things that we require.
that's all I want to know.
We're gonna review it for that,
Stormwater.
but we don't get to
and-
talk to them about.
We
you
can't
know,
decide what pink color
clotheslines
is.
Exactly. We can't just
and
exactly
things like
decide
that.
that you must have.
No pink.
So,
houses.
but yes, we can look at that to ensure that everything that's required in our law
Is in the
is
home.
in that.
Okay. Nadine, I promise to be quiet now.
I'm so off my groove right now, but all right, so I'm just gonna.
That was the whole intent. We just-
I'm just gonna go over quickly what Rick already mentioned. I did speak to Rick and Liz about this briefly when we submitted it, just a brief overview. And one of the things Rick did ask for was, oh, can you provide what this subdivision would look at as a conventional subdivision without any clustering or the open space? So this is just a product of a concept that we had done very early on for the feasibility of this project. Was our initial layout before we started getting into doing test holes and doing other things. So it was really just a feasibility to see, okay, do these lots fit? What's the density? What's the slopes and that kind of thing. So it is very vague. But we did look at that initially, and how it came about where the conservation subdivision would make more sense, of course, is right in line with the town comprehensive plan, is to not disturb any wetlands, not to disturb any steep slopes, not to, to really conserve some of the sensitive areas on the property. So that's when we started looking at, okay, can we move the road a little bit more? Where can we put these properties where we're not really changing the landscape too much? Can we get the houses close to the tree lines, out of the middle of the fields? And so that's really how we worked into the conservation subdivision. And there is substantial wetlands on this property. It was delineated, it's in with the EAF information. There's a map that was done by Medenbach-Eggers, was delineated by the DEC, located by Medenbach-Eggers, and it was accepted by the DEC. We do not have a report or additional information. And one of the reasons why we didn't move forward with that is because we're not disturbing it at all. There's no disturbance from this plan of the wetland or the 100-foot buffer. We do show some passive recreation use in there as far as walking trails, which is something allowable, which we will develop some details on how they would be constructed. But so that one, we have a few points of conversation. I know the board can't vote on anything, but feedback tonight is very important. So wetlands, if additional information is needed, we would like to know. Again, we are not disturbing it at all. So we feel like we have the map that delineates it. So we're using that boundary, we're using the 100-foot buffer, and really staying out of those areas completely. One of the other things, we did get comments back from Liz, which we'll go over, but the owner is working with an architect. They really would like to build on the lots and sell the lots that way. So when we have our design 100%, which we feel like we're getting very close, this is the map that we submitted with the plan. And since we've met with the health department, and you won't even notice, but this we've tweaked a few. And then it's a little neater. We've tweaked a few of the septic areas because we did find better soils in one area, or we're able to move things around. Does not change the number of lots. Like I said, you barely even notice that there's any change. So any of the, right now for us, the layout is very close to what we feel like we would want to develop. That we want to have some discussion here because we want to start getting the surveyor out on the site to get a profile where we show the road, to mark out the location of the road so we get a better view of exactly where we are. And, so we want to hear if there's any real concerns about how this is laid out or where it's laid out so that we can address that.
Why
So
the future lot? Future lot 13 and 14.
So those lots, the soils were not that great on, and we do want to do some soil amendment, which essentially is bringing in about 12 inches of soil in those areas. Both of those areas right now are open fields. There's no disturbance of trees. There's no clearing to do that. And then once that material sits through a freeze thaw after 6 months, we can have the health department look at it at that time. So that's why we have kind of a phase 2 for this, for those future lots.
And would that be a deal killer for him if he couldn't do those? Just out
As
of
far
curiosity, did you
as-
sit through a freeze thaw and it still is crappy?
Yeah, so that's
Or if
it's
we say-
really highly designed so that the potential of it failing is almost zero.
But
Because
still,
it is substantial investment. Both of these areas, so for lot.
because the first one's got, you've got a national wetland right around the corner where they're.
Which one
are you
Future
looking
lot
at?
14, the,
Yeah, so 14 is, this is very wide open and there's a bit of, I hate to say a knoll, but there is a rise in the property there. So that's where we show that. And only one, so the soils would be placed and then the disturbance to build the system would be in the inner circles of what's shown there. So everything else would go back to being meadow, basically.
I like
Be
the change.
revegetated as meadow.
I like the change in 3 and 4 over the prior plan. Thank you for fixing that.
Yeah, and again, we found really good soils down there. So nearly every single septic that we're proposing on this site is a raised system. But down by
flat,
the
And they
creek,
fixed it.
the soils change. So,
That's nicer.
yeah.
And this is wider.
And, one of the things too, I know we're kind of jumping around here, but we
So
do
everything
show
has to be raised.
almost everyone. But we do show a couple of shared driveways, which every lot has frontage. But we're looking to limit disturbance. We're looking to kind of limit anywhere we can do that. So there's a couple, the lots 3 and 4 there, that is a long driveway. So we were hoping to share that.
Yep.
But also provide an area once you get to the run that there is a turnaround, that people can turn around and go back up if they had to. And then lots, we got 7, 6 and 7. We show kind of a shaded gray line where initially we have the driveway, and then we're like, you know what, they're both up on that knoll, if they could share a driveway and split off. So that's one thing we want.
The whole entire property is AR3. There's no,
No other zoning on the site.
So I like, the shared driveway, I like that,
Me
which
too.
is less disturbance. I don't care for lot number 14, and I know that's the one in the middle. It sits right in the middle of the conservation easement area.
13.
13, did I say
13.
14
Oh,
and then
yeah.
13?
Yeah,
So-
13.
And the reason for it is, Maren used the word, it's crappy soil, it's clay under there, and you're amending it. It's in the middle of the subdivision easement, conservation easement. It's a perfect place to have some sort of amenity that the entire community can use, if you would, an amenity for those people. An observation tower, it's high in that area, as
Well,
opposed to
And
giving it
that's
over to.
exactly the point, that it is not low, it's not a low-lying area. This literally is a knoll. It's a knoll that the road is up high, and then it goes down gradually, and then it falls down to that stream. And it is a beautiful little hillside. So it's not, when you say it's in the middle of the conservation area, it does look like that on paper, but it does not look like that on the site. And I know we've talked about it, and I'll throw it out to the entire board. Would love if anybody could come and walk even a portion of the site. We don't have to walk the entire thing, but hit a couple high points to just illustrate some of what the vegetation is out there. It does vary substantially from when you come into lots 1 and 2. It's very wooded, and then here's a
It's actually
different type of.
mandatory.
So we'll be
I
there.
love it.
Yeah, we'll
I
be
love
there,
it. I mean, the weather's gorgeous
Is
now
anything
still.
staked?
But it needs to be staked out
So-
a bit more before. we
Yes,
go in.
so
Right.
all the test holes that we've done are marked and the house sites with ribbon. So we do have ribbon there. We put all our points into Onyx through GIS. So if you can open that up and you can see exactly where you are on the property.
Let's
too.
come back to
Yeah.
lot
But
13.
because the other
Well-
thing is, it isn't just, well, you're right, Rick, that it isn't just the wetlands that are conservation. That's only a small part of it. The conservation is 37.6.
I was gonna say,
Acres.
it overall, right, it's like 40 acres in that section there. So it's huge to put amenities on in other locations. And again, that gray area shows where we're gonna amend the soils. But once the soils are amended, they go back to being meadow. And then just the small little inner circle is what the septic system is. And all the rest is just natural vegetation again.
Is the pathway road marked in any way?
No, and that's, we want to get the surveyor out there. I know, and, we just didn't want to spend money and then have a big problem, I don't think there's any big problem.
Because the
So
whole
in-
thing has to have a hydrological study
Well, so in
on
L,
top of.
in the conservation subdivision option L, and it outlines a specific process that we're supposed to follow. I think it might be helpful if we looked at that and tried to maybe follow that process, because we're jumping around.
Didn't CBO already wrote it?
No, it's not. I mean, see, they did reference it, but like in this
Ah, you want
section
to
L, 125-23 L, the following process shall be followed in preparing a conservation subdivision plan once the applicant or planning board has determined from a sketch plan submission that this is the form of development for the property in question.
Right, and
So I
that's
think
where we're
maybe
at. We're
we've-
at the sketch
right.
plan.
And
And I
So
then-
that's exactly what we need from the board.
And I think we've
before we move
maybe
forward.
determined, I mean, maybe we need to formally determine, but I think we're trying to determine that that's appropriate. But then there's this whole list of things in one, it's L1A through H, which Liz outlined in her letter. But then this whole section 2 almost brings us back to the beginning, which is after that's all been prepared, the applicants, and this is what Martin is referencing, shall arrange for a site inspection by the planning board. Based on the map and inspection, a 4-step design process shall then be applied to determine the layout of proposed conservation areas comes first, house sites, streets, and lot lines as described below. So the conservation area has to be designated first based off of the resource and site analysis, not based off of a sketch plan. Then tentative house sites shall be identified, which there's guidelines for that. Then on designated house plans, a street plan shall be designated. So like it's conservation area, home sites, street location. Then 4th is lot lines. So like
Right, but you
I
have to
think-
have a sketch plan.
I
so
know
that
it's a
you know
convoluted-
What,
the process is
Right.
weird.
we do know that we have, obviously engineering and some things to do to provide to the board. But this is the sketch
Yeah,
plan. And, that's the thing, we did try to outline, what the soils are on the property, so you can see that. We wanted to outline, what the slopes were on the property. We did everything above 15% because that's what the code reads. I know that Liz had asked for, slopes 0 to 10%, things like that, but I did not see that in the code. So I did want to get clarification on that tonight as well. But we do, should-
Doing
That
that
would
as a
be
matter
great
of
to have
practice, actually.
yeah. I
Okay.
think like the point I was just trying to make is, I think that all of this engineering is great and will likely be really valuable. And it seems like the only nervous about my wording here, but I think the only benefit that the applicant is seeking from the conservation subdivision is the lot size. There's no density bonus,
we're
being
not,
sought.
we're not asking for density.
just
We're
lot
not asking
size.
to waive any setbacks.
It's just lot size.
It's just the lot size.
How many lots were under the normal subdivision rule? How many lots?
So
were
this
there?
one
3 acre
shows
zoning on a
15.
90 acre lot.
And again, this was
But you can't put it in
concept.
a
Right, I
lot
know,
of
I
places.
know.
There's not
Yeah,
really
yeah,
90
yeah.
acres.
Lots.
so
No, I
that's
know.
subtract stuff out.
It's 14.
So you're saying when you
Saying how
subtract
many
that.
lots are
okay.
under the
No,
code.
This is what we
Yeah,
had
that is
before.
right. The
That's
original
15.
conceptual
So this is
plan
actually
is what
less
they were looking at.
Dense.
It is, and there were some issues with this, and Liz,
Mm-hmm.
points out that there's some areas that, would require some substantial grading. But again, that's the whole point of a conservation subdivision, is to avoid those areas,
So I'd like to get a sense of the board. You have the map to my left, Nadine's right, which frankly,
It's similar, it's very, very,
Oh,
very
it's-
similar.
frankly, cuts up the land versus the other map, which respects the need for the preserving the natural habitat, if you would. If this, I think my sense is that we should go with what's being proposed as opposed to the other one.
Agreed.
I agree, but at the same time, it always ends up a bit rhetorical because you have places that could not be developed on whether it is like this or whether it is like that. You're already seeing you need raised septic. So while this is better and it clusters it more, it's not as if they're really giving that much up in their conservation is because you
No.
couldn't put anything in it.
So let me ask.
Exactly, but,
Hang on,
but
honey.
wait,
So
one
let
of the
me ask-
things, let
No,
me
wait a
just
minute,
tell you the
wait a minute, wait,
benefit.
I don't want to, wait a minute. So what would you want them to give up in this new plan? Since you feel that they're not giving us anything with this new plan, what would you want them to do?
I agree with you, Rick, on the one,
The
get
one
rid of the
lot,
lot 13,
13?
yeah.
I mean, I also,
A marginal on lot 14 because you've got, but the house seems to be down away from the other stuff, but exactly to keep the whole. pretty much that whole side open. and-
I mean, I
and
do
give up
agree
what-
that we're not, that you can't build, it would be questionable how many you could get on the traditional layout, how many lots you could really get. So I get that point. You can draw stuff on the map, but once you put the overlays and everything, it's like, eh. But we are getting contiguous land with this in the conservation easement, which is very valuable. Again, I don't like lot 13. I can live with the one
I
down.
would just, before,
Go
I
ahead.
know, and I get it, and we show them as future lots. And if it turns out that these things cannot move forward, I mean, because we're not asking for lot size variation on either of those, right? So the lot size variation we're asking for are on the other parcels.
Right.
Whether we lose these or don't lose these, but I would just ask, and, again, this is during the site visit, because seeing this in person really changes a lot of things.
Happy to
And-
see it in person. And the only other thing I'll say about 13, it's like a pimple into the conservation easement. Everything else kind of makes sense because it's on the other side of the road and I get it. And I like the fact that we're preserving everything else, but this is like a,
We
almost like a
technically,
pimple.
we
Still worried.
technically can have the conservation easement go over this lot and have
So I'm-
sanitary
I'm-
systems in the conservation easement.
I'm concerned that we're putting like the trees in front of the forest,
Right.
so to speak here, like, in order to get any of these benefits, this law is actually remarkably clear compared to other sections of our code. Like, we have to follow this specific process, which starts with step 1, which Liz made specific requests for in her letter. And then it goes to step 2, which again, step 2 has a specific process also, where the first thing is we do a site visit, we look at the proposed conservation area, which you have a proposed conservation area, which you have reasons for. And I'm sure those reasons are very persuasive, and I'll probably be persuaded by them. But I'm also cognizant of
do
the
that.
fact that, like, I spend a lot of time right next to the Rondout River in the course of my daily work. And this board might think, well, we should also conserve some other area. And we might think that the conservation area should have a different shape, and maybe density should even be higher in other areas. Like, I just think the process here is very specific. And when we're talking about where lot boundaries should go and which lots are kosher, so to speak, and which aren't, we're getting
Yeah,
ahead
I
of
think,
ourselves.
again, we're getting
we
into a
need to
lot
have
of
a
detail.
concept before we go there.
Sure, but we
Right.
do have,
Can
This
I
is the concept,
This is the
yeah.
concept.
Yes,
but
basically,
again,
this
the
is the concept
concept
we all
starts
sorted
with
with the
the
conservation.
conservation area.
easement.
Like, in theory, like, I'm not saying that it should be done differently than these maps, because I think these maps are incredibly helpful. But like, you could imagine the first map coming to us being like, here's the parcel, here's the area we want to conserve, and nothing else on the map.
Right.
And here's the property resources according to 125L1, 125.23L1, and like nothing else is on the map. Like, that's sort of what this is
Right, so
asking us to
you,
do.
but going back to a,
Right,
Blank.
which,
just a blank, it's sort of, it's
without the conservation
an
area.
existing,
Right,
We
it's
did
sort of
provide
this.
that.
Mhm.
sort of that, but
Right,
with,
so we do
yeah.
have that.
But-
Now,
Yeah, no,
there
I'm
are,
not-
there
again,
are a
I'm-
few
there's no
things, and I will
criticism of
say,
what's
we
been
don't
provided.
have like the stone walls shown very specifically on here, because we do, again, we need to spend some time with the surveyor on the property. However, the majority of the stone walls on the site is wherever there's like a tree row.
so
There's
It's a
not
bit
just
like-
stone walls everywhere.
along to what you're saying, if you take this
Take
as
that.
it is,
Mhm.
and you say, we don't know anything about houses,
Mhm.
why?
Right.
And we say, we just, we pretend, totally pretending. We've got floodplain, wetlands, whatever, we've got this here, so we say, oh, we really want all of this conserved, I'm making this up again, and we want it to go super skinny there, and then also get the floodplain there.
Mhm.
And then,
And maybe 50
Here's
feet
what's
along
left.
the river.
and maybe 50 feet along the river, all along there, saying, once we walk in and look at it, say, okay, as you totally said, it's pretty clear in our law. So now we've defined, this is the stuff we need conserved here. Now you gotta
Figure out what's.
figure out what to do with the houses in between it. That's the way, like, it might all come in from Peninsula, or, I mean, you seem to have the best access, but it might. So you look at the area, define the conservation,
Mhm.
and maybe it ends up exactly like this is,
Right.
but we have to do that
We have
first.
to do the process.
And then, so we sort of
Yeah, and
conceptually,
in
this is
speaking
great,
to
but-
that, we can conserve many other areas, like you're saying, along the creek. Now, the town already has a setback from any creek, 100 feet, that we can't build in, which is shown on here as well. So we will not be building within that 100 feet. It could be part of the conservation area as well, owned separately or owned by the individual lot owners, doesn't matter. Right now, what we show is shown owned separately. But yeah, I mean, this is the setback here, the 100-foot setback from the creek, which is, part of the town zoning. So obviously, we're not building anything within that. But yeah, so if, we can definitely put the conservation area that we're proposing right now on here, but to make it all make sense, that's why we, put the road and where we think we would like the homes. So
So
Sam, are you
operationally,
saying we should have a site visit? Because that would be great.
I mean, I guess I defer to the chair on this, but what I'm saying in its briefest form is we should look at what's outlined in 23L once, and we should do it. It's like, once we've determined from the sketch plan that this is appropriate to have a conservation subdivision, then we should make sure we have everything listed in 1, A through H. And then once the board is satisfied, or the chair is satisfied that everything in L1, A through H has been submitted, then we should schedule site visits and try to fulfill the requirements of L2, A through D.
I would say I agree with you, Sam, but I don't think there's a problem with visiting the site
Before.
twice to
Yeah,
get
sure.
an idea
That's
whether
fine.
you think the sketch is good enough to
Mhm.
get to L.
and then Sam, along what you're saying, when you read in your process that you're going through, process A, we have a clear definition of conservation areas primary and conservation areas secondary.
Oh,
which-
in the definitions,
you always go back to the definitions, is what Jerry always says.
in 140.
And no, this is in
125 has its own
125.
definition. Right.
So conservation areas, primary bodies of water, 100-year floodplains, federal and state wetlands, and slopes over 25 grade. So that lends itself to, like you just said, Nadine, the floodplain part, that becomes green down along the edge of the river. And then secondary becomes viewpoints, stone walls, grows of large trees, rocks, ledges, and other areas of value to a subdivision or conservation feature, blah, 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 and then we jointly. So yes, it is.
so
Gotta
how,
visit it to sort of see.
so I don't have a problem, and there's a process defined here. How do we operationalize that so that Nadine can proceed to operationally come up with L1, A through H? And how is what she would do to accomplish that different from what we're looking at? And maybe Liz can help us at this point, because I know Liz's comments does seem to be addressing L1, A through H, and then L2, A through. I'm trying to, what will we do different at this point, or have Nadine do differently than what's been done already?
The one thing I want the board to be able to have, which Nadine has partly provided, is I think that the comparison of conventional to cluster is good. And I was trying to be very selective in saying, could you add this to make that more possible? I wouldn't expect them to have to go to the hilt with detail on the conventional, but it would be helpful to see certain things. I tried to be selective about that. And then if it's possible for it to somehow be oriented similar, I mean, anybody can turn them out.
Yeah,
so
like I
that's not-
said, this was off the cuff conversation. I said, we did this for the concept, and that's why we submitted it this way. And we wanted to really, before we spend any time on it, have the discussion with the board to see how necessary it is to show, because honestly, they are so similar. And I know we're in a different orientation, but it is, so this concept is so similar to the concept that, we've been following through with, and even house locations and lot locations and things
Yep.
like that. Is it necessary to continue with this conventional layout? Because the only and I'm gonna be honest, the only thing with the conservation we're asking for is to have lower lot areas and on a couple of lots. And so that location on the map is really the only difference from this, other than some tweaking of the road lines that we've done since we visited the site and things like that. I mean, we can overlay it, but is the board gonna get what they, I mean, because
I
it
don't
sounds
see
like
what-
they don't
yeah.
even want any
I don't see
lot
what
layouts.
overlaying anything else on that conventional outline is going to do for us. What I do see, I think I know where Sam is going. Sam, let me play back what you're asking for. You're asking for an environmental map, literally, which lays out all the environmental perspectives, everything, as a separate map without lots being put on it.
Which
Maybe
is
we get to
clearly,
the requirement,
clearly required.
Yeah, and
right,
we,
which is the procedure. So if we can,
and
well, I don't know
Liz
whether
asked
that's it
for
or
additional
not.
information as far as labeling the high points of the property and,
we need slopes, all
got it.
slopes.
Yeah.
But the slopes on here.
This
The
is
slopes
after
are on
you've
here.
approved sketch.
Right, it's weird.
So first you do sketch and we're trying to work.
I feel like we have a sketch
But
plan
then you have,
that's
you have a
comfortable.
sketch that
Says the
maybe
work
you'll
plan.
approve at your next meeting. And then she goes on to the next step, which is a good reason to go out and visit this site between now and the next.
All right, so we
meeting.
have a
And
s-
then after you said, sketch can always change. Sketch is a concept.
But it doesn't fulfill, I don't think it fulfills what Sam and what
You
Mara are
don't
asking for.
fulfill
think-
that till the next step.
I agree with Mary Lou about that.
Okay.
It's like, we can go look because the first thing is like, are we interested in
Right.
continuing down the subdivision, the conservation subdivision path, and therefore authorizing ourselves to grant these waivers of density, setback, et cetera. And like, that's the first question,
Which everyone,
which is like, are we like, this is, I'm just speaking hypothetically, like, this is garbage land, no one cares about this anyway, let's, you know,
You're right.
so to heck with the conservation subdivision. Like, if we say that, then we don't want to give density bonuses and you do the regular.
I'm sorry.
But if we're like, oh, this is beautiful land, this is great open space, we think it's in the interest of the town to preserve it. Then we look at the environmental stuff and decide where the,
All right, so I think we need to give Nadine a comfort level with the general sketch.
Mhm.
And then ask for a site visit from, and a development of what I call an environmental resources map.
Yep.
Is that, is the board,
I just have a couple things to add based on the concept.
do you agree with what I said so far?
I do.
Yep.
Okay, so you want to add to it, great.
I like the idea of the original concept for lot 2 that you had at 3 acres, growing that lot into 14, which makes it to the 3-acre plan.
Wasn't it?
But why are we discussing this now?
Well, I'm going there in a second. She's asking for a variance on 4 lots.
It's not a variance.
Not a
Right,
variance,
right.
It's
right.
not a
Asking-
variance at all.
waiver.
It's what, it's not even a
So it's not
waiver.
even that.
It's
It's
something that's
asking us to
allowed by
accept-
the
if
conservation
we say it's a
is to have a
conservation.
reduced lot area. And you could have reduced setbacks, you can have reduced other things too, but all
The-
we're asking is
The
for
the
the
only
lot
things
area.
that so far that you're asking for waivers on is the view shed analysis and
And
the
trees.
marking of the significant trees. And I think
Which,
we're too early.
right, and
for
that's
that.
not even, for the trees, it does say in the code that, the board can consider just doing it in the disturbance areas, because obviously half of this site is not even being disturbed.
So Mark, to your,
Let me
to your,
finish,
go
yeah.
ahead.
So on lot 12, I would like to see that lot grown into future lot 14 to
Mhm.
potentially get up or closer to the 3-acre minimum.
Gotcha.
In addition to that, potentially seeing lot 11, 10, and 9 reduced to 2 lots, where they would at least be closer in size to the minimum, granting the understanding that we're going to have a reduction in the amount of lots. So keeping in mind that these 4 lots potentially change into 3 lots, where we're closer to the 3-acre requirement, I think would be.
Except with the conservation.
I
easement, that
understand.
requirement
I understand.
doesn't exist.
But it's
And-
up to,
and typically,
it's
I
up
just
to
wanna-
owner. If legally they can reduce the lot size.
I
if they
understand
want.
that, but with
So-
80% of your septics raised,
right.
there's a potential future problem there, and having the amount of reduced lots makes sense in this event. I understand we have the opportunity in a conservation to have smaller lot sizes, but with your amount of raised beds, it's something to think
So,
about. We're
Mark,
asking
would
for
you
We've
feedback.
agree?
gone over that with the health department.
But what we have.
Yes,
we
the
have-
department's come
the
out,
reason you
they've
changed that.
evaluated the sites and the test holes. And there is, in all those areas, suitable soils for the system.
Right, and that's why you
And the
changed it the way you
footprints that we
did.
show on here is the toe of a berm for a raised system, like the totally outside, plus 100% reserve. So.
So they're not 100% raised, then they're somewhat, some shallow, some all the way raised.
No, these are raised, and this is the toe of the berm, so like the system area is in here,
Yep.
and that's the toe of the berm, plus 100% reserve
Mhm.
area. Those down there are shallow systems.
So Mark,
And
could you agree that instead of getting into those levels of detail right now,
Sure.
that's true.
that when we do the conservation analysis or
Yep.
the resources map, some things may change anyway.
I guess the reason for
And
my,
the other thing is, I don't want to second guess the Department of Health if
understand,
they say it's okay now.
sure.
But we
I mean,
also,
We
at
could,
this
but-
level of
Concept.
water withdrawal, we also, in our site, in our subdivision, ask for a full hydrological study. So
Mm-hmm.
that's on top of what the Department of Health.
I guess the
Right.
reason that I mentioned that, Rick, is
Yep.
I
That's not-
truly
yeah.
believe that Peak Engineering did
That's-
every
yeah.
part of their
Yeah.
homework to
That's
find
Right.
let's
what,
have one conversation.
sorry, in my opinion, I'm sure Peak Engineering did 100% of their homework to figure out exactly where the conservation easement would be best placed.
Right.
I'm confident in that. So Nadine asked specifically for some feedback based on how this looks.
Right.
That is my feedback, just because we are asking for, their request is to have some reduced size lots, and I'm all for that. I just think that there could be better opportunity to see these resized. That's my
Okay.
only request.
And
I
because
understand. Could
in
I
what-
just ask, I have one question of Maren, but I was, let me just restate where I think we're at. We're going forward with coming up with a natural resources plan first.
No.
Map.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
And site visit.
Map.
Can you make
We need a
So you
site
can
visit.
Yeah,
determine whether
and-
the sketches.
My second,
Can you make it a
Good
little
perspective.
brighter, this
Definitely.
elevation?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
definitely. But I will shade things so that they're a little bit more clear, and if we have to
yeah,
do a
they're tough,
couple.
they're tough to read a little bit. But
Yeah.
my question for Maren
it's a
is,
lot of
you
information.
mentioned the hydrological study, and I agree. Where did you see that in the conservation subdivision?
It's in the
It's
regular.
there.
It's in the
It's in the
regular
regular
subdivision. It's in the
in
regular
the major.
subdivision and major subdivision.
In the major, okay, thank you. I,
Yeah.
you're right.
You're
I
having-
misunderstood you.
And I just want everyone to remember, so potentially 14 lots are what you have here, if it's 13 and 14
Right.
were to go into the future. They could ask for an undersized lot on every one of these, and you're asking on 4, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
12,
Yep.
11, 10, and 9.
I
Yeah,
think
there's very
maybe-
few that are under the 3 acres.
I think maybe
Five.
Mark's bigger point is, it sort of smells like there could be a septic,
I'm just thinking
Yeah.
future septic.
Okay.
Right.
smell.
No pun
big
Septic.
future septic problem. So
Ah,
maybe
okay.
the solution
You
So you
is
have experience with
just
it.
less,
I don't,
I think there's 5 lots. that are-
just
I
less
guess-
lots in general.
Well,
It's a psychological preparedness.
Works fine.
No?
I agree.
Possible?
No, I'm not
I agree with what
Five.
you're on the right track. My only thought is,
complimentary.
we can grow 12 and shrink 14 to still be within the parameters. We might as well do it. If that would help your septic problem potential here. 11, 10, and 9 are not bad, but if, in my opinion, 11 and 10 could be combined to one lot and just leave 9 undersized. Now
Okay,
you
but
have one lot.
we do agree, I got it.
No, I'm just talking back and forth. with Mary, but
We do agree that we're not at that level of detail yet.
Well, we can close the meeting then, because we're pretty much at,
But
And then I have one more, I just have
I don't
one
want to
more
close the
question.
meeting yet. We got a whole bunch of other things. I just want to,
Chair, I have one more.
Sure, go ahead.
Is 11 and 12 a shared apron, or is that a shared driveway?
We would like to, they're pretty close to the road, so we would
Okay.
have the driveway come in off the road and then split into each lot. Whatever that distance would be, but it's not much,
Okay.
maybe 40 feet.
Okay, so we need a separate shared driveway agreement there. or something.
And that being said, even for the hydrology, like we would love to drill a well on the site and get some testing done, but we don't want to you know, we have to get access to get it, well, so a lot of these things do have to come in a little bit of a phase to get these things accomplished. And I,
We're sort of at phase visit.
We're
with-
there.
with
yeah, site visits, so we can
Okay.
definitely,
Conservation.
yeah, have that
So, Nadine,
conversation.
if you get-
of-
I have a bunch of other things I just want to throw out there.
Yep,
Because I can't help myself but to think, at some point, I believe you're going to need all the 15 things that I'm going to mention.
you betcha.
We will, Nicole is out for a week, so setting up a meeting, you can send me an email and I'll set up the meeting, the site visit. You know, down the
I
road.
mean, I have a calendar.
Okay, we could do that. But let me tell you the things I think you're going to need
Yep,
that we didn't talk about. And maybe too much detail for the stage of the game, and catch me where there's something missing. Traffic study for along Lucas Turnpike. We need a copy of the wetland study
hang on
that
one
you.
second, I just.
Yeah, you're
want-
going too fast. I
No,
know, take notes too.
no, I have a little
know.
question about that. You want a traffic study specific to the Lucas Ave intersection?
Where else? Should I be asking for it someplace else too? And that's where all the traffic's gonna come out.
It's that intersection of 209 Lucas Avenue, adding more people feeding out of this into where everybody
Yeah,
stacks
it
up.
is. I don't know how to put my arms around that, though. Should one
No,
project,
we'll have the traffic consultant
should
definitely.
one project pay for a study that's at a corner that's being impacted by multiple things going on?
They do, they go beyond the
Okay.
initial intersection,
Fine,
but,
good point.
okay. I just,
And if I may, we do have traffic folks that could come up with like a reasonable scope scale to this.
Okay,
I mean, it's.
this isn't a time to sell CPL's capabilities. Let me go through my list first. then we
okay,
can
wait,
sell.
wait. But just because, I mean, I know we had a brief conversation about that, and even if we're thinking about our outside of 14 potential residential homes and what that is, you know, for their peak hour, whether it's 2 cars, 4 cars per home, and the traffic that is currently on Lucas Avenue, the county road. So we just want to make sure that the board definitely wants a full traffic study. Okay. Got it.
Well, and the other thing, I mean, part of traffic in your full EIS or EAF, you had 67 people going in, but only 67% of the traffic going into the project and only 37 coming out.
That's the peak hour. Yeah, during the peak
I mean, I
hour.
felt like it was the Hotel California, you know, you get to come, but you don't get to leave.
Well, that's the thing. Like most people are either like
Okay.
coming home from work and there's not too many people going out at that time. So that's
Copy of the
right
wet-
off the EIS traffic.
I know you delineated the wetlands. We need to see an actual wetland study. We'll have the verbiage around what you did with the wetlands.
To the federal.
T&E study, and that's not travel and entertainment. It's threatened endangered species. You gave us the soil study. I think we have that,
Yeah,
so I'm okay with that. SWIP, you're gonna need a SWIP.
yeah, we are
We are-
way too early
I
for
know,
that.
I know,
but
but
Yeah,
want you
I'm
to
not even
be-
writing that one down, Rick.
okay. You know,
She
things like
knows.
bioremediation ponds and all that other good
She
stuff.
knows.
Okay, great. We're gonna send it to the ECC, the Rochester ECC, even though they don't have any regulatory responsibility. I want to get their input. We're not there yet. Maybe in another couple of weeks.
When it gets circulated to everyone else, you'll circulate it to
Yeah.
them?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you. View shed analysis. I know you were asking for a waiver around that, but we talked before about how it could be done with an overlay.
Yeah, and I know.
More concerned
Liz
with
gave
the,
a little bit of an outline about that too,
Okay.
like within a 2-mile radius
Yeah.
type thing, public roads.
Yeah.
Okay,
okay.
And I guess the only reason, sorry, tiny interjection is when we walk it, because you have some of these houses on knolls.
Right.
The down ones probably aren't a problem, but the Nolly ones
one
could,
Nolly,
because that's a scenic.
well, I will tell you this actually, because we have walked this property with the architect, that the views from these spots have all kind of been looked at and tweaked pretty much based on this. So you'll be happy, like when we have the house sites kind of flagged out. So it'll be great to go out there and see that there's really not much between the lots that you can see the other houses.
We're going, when we do decide about where the road is gonna be, when it's finalized in the areas of disturbance, I do want, a tree locator of the stuff that's coming down as per
Definitely,
code.
we are going to definitely, no matter what, locate the trees necessary within the areas of disturbance. And again, started talking a little bit about that we're, when we do this, because the owner is building the homes, there's not gonna be flexibility. This is where the home's going. This is like, we're hoping to get footprints for the houses and get on instead of these boxes.
Good.
And so, yeah, so that's gonna be really, really defined before we're all said and done.
Can I ask you, like, just 1 second, since we're talking about trees. On this plan right here was lot 2, again, I'm jumping ahead, but it's core forest there, so I'm not sure how
It's a what?
core forest. Yeah. Right there. So,
I mean, around.
sorry?
No, he's showing it right here, which actually, this
here,
is a
right here.
clearing right here. And there's a whole cleared road that goes all the way down to the existing farm site. So that's
Well,
kind of
just-
funny that
it
that's
came
there.
from- Yeah, came from county, as you know.
Well, when you do the
No, it's
environment,
not county, it's from environmental.
Yeah,
when
the
you do the
Hudson
natural
Valley.
resources mapping, that
Yeah,
maybe
I'm
that'll
just.
pop
Well, I think that's back going back, that corroborates what Sam said. By doing the environmental everything first, we could look and say, oh, no, we want
Figure
this
out all
pod
that
and this
out.
pod and figure everything out like that. And that shows one, and by
and
walking in and doing the,
Yeah, and then
Last
once
but
we have
not-
the road staked out and at least we could brush hog it so we can walk the road together too. So maybe hopefully by that time, once the sketch plan gets accepted, then we can do that and then.
I
Yeah,
would-
we
I
did a
would
better-
read really, like, I don't want to be too dogmatic on this, but
you're never dogmatic. Sam, you're the king of dogs.
the 12523L, I would just like read that like 6 times in a row because some of the
Yeah,
orders
I've
that you're
read
saying,
it,
like,
I've
Here's the
read
one
it
I'm reading.
all,
It's
and
like-
honestly, that's why I thought our existing conditions
Yeah,
map
I'm just saying, like,
really is.
when you
pretty
said, when the
comprehensive.
sketch plan is approved, it's just like this step 2 kind of like throws it back out the window. And we start with conservation area, home sites, lot lines, then road. And it's like, I get that that's annoying from,
No, it's totally fine, and we do get that, and honestly, that's kind of what we were looking at in our mind when we think of home sites, though, we think of the sanitary.
sure,
And then we think about setbacks
sure.
from other things, so that's how we did look at it as far as the conservation and again, we can definitely add to the conservation and anywhere, and when we talk about like secondary, some of that does have to come later, and obviously easements, if there's gonna be easements, like we can't define the easements until we
Right.
have
No, of course.
those lots defined, so some of it's got to come
I'm
later.
just pointing out that, like, we're approving like this general idea so that we're entering into conservation subdivision world
Exactly.
instead of just major
Major
subdivision world.
Right.
Yeah,
And once we're in conservation subdivision world, there's like a different set of rules, which says that we have to start with the conservation area, then home sites, then road, then property.
that's totally fine. We
Yeah, and that's all I'm
can
saying, like-
deconstruct it
Exactly.
and
so when
make
we,
that.
when we have this project in front of us, we will need to have hats on. It says we are now in.
Yeah.
We have now gone through the portal number B.
Yeah.
2A.
And
All
the
right.
last, the last thing that Dean,
LTA.
and it's just, I hope that area is dark, if you would, at night. I mean, it's, you can see the stars from there. There's not a lot of lights around, right? So whatever you do in terms of roadway lighting, question mark, or your house lighting, whatever, has to respect, it's got to be as dark as possible to
Yeah,
preserve
I don't know why
the,
there would be roadway lighting. I
Good.
mean, it's not a requirement for
Good.
residential
No, you don't
subdivisions,
have to.
so I
Then we
don't
won't
think there
do it.
would be, yeah. No,
I support that.
you know, I mean, obviously, people are gonna have lights on their garages and their front doors and things like that,
but they,
residential.
no floodlights, that,
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
that which we'll, you know, submit all of that information, but no.
and
there
that's
was-
got to be part of the homeowners association
Do they,
requirements.
do they have any idea? This is, once again, this is like It's not as far away as the SWIP, but almost that far away.
It's far, far.
Whether they're gonna put the conservation easement in with the Land Conservancy or the HOA runs it.
I would believe it's the HOA
HOA.
because the whole point of this is to have, like you were saying, like amenities for the homeowners on this property to be able to access these areas, to access the creek, to access, what little bit of stream there is. There is already a farm road that crosses the stream that, we've talked about them utilizing and not, constructing any other crossings. And, we've talked about that, like the very passive recreation for that area. But that's kind of the key. One of which I have not seen anybody do or want to do, one of the highlights of this proposal includes a walking path along the road. So there'd be the road with the shoulders and then a separated, like by grass or swale or whatever, an actual trail along the road for people
4
to
feet
walk
wide,
through.
right?
How long is
Yeah.
the road?
It's like 4,000.
4,000.
Yeah, it's long.
Long.
It's long. And that was the thing too, like if there was a big issue, I mean,
But it's a
show
through
it.
road, that's a plus in my
We
opinion.
show
Oh, I
a through
agree.
road
Yeah.
because that's what everybody loves, right? They
Some
don't
big
like
cul-de-sac
cul-de-sacs.
in the
We
middle
could
there.
put a cul-de-sac somewhere, but it's
Yeah.
not necessary. We can get it. The grades are not that bad. There are a few areas where, there's some steep slopes, but when you walk through the site, there's a lot of gradual grades. It's pretty amazing. And we have kind of pretty much brush hog some paths where we've been trying to get through. So, and there's some great big trees that will come about, like if we have to shift a house site or something, the property owner wants to do that. So.
Good.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
the
so
wiggliness of the layout of both the road and kind of layout of the homes will also help in terms of how visible,
Exactly.
And
Right.
keeping the speeds lower.
but the visual stuff is important.
All right,
We-
so
yeah,
let's get our calendars out. Miss Attorney, I know that you're very strict, and I'm glad you are, in terms of what constitutes a meeting, what doesn't constitute a meeting. If we were to have the whole board out there, we have to let the public know
You
we're
have to
having a
know,
meeting.
yeah, it's a public meeting, you have to.
You
put-
can
Does-
just
do
do
your
it like
legal
we did for
notice.
Cusack. You just
Yeah.
do it
Yeah.
the same
In
day.
stages.
You do
Yeah,
stages.
Same day.
That tends to be easier because.
Yeah.
True, you're
yeah.
walking them through the woods.
You can all go together so long as
Three people
nobody
sit
says
on
a word
that
to each other.
I can
It's
only
not
walk through the
practically
site
gonna
once.
happen.
It's
All
big.
right,
It's
so we're
long.
talking about
You'd need
Um,
3 different meetings.
trip
though.
A, trip B on the same day.
You
Okay.
need,
2 we can
you
do.
need A, B, and C.
A, B, and C,
If
if
all
everybody
7
wants
of
to
you
go.
are looking.
Is that muddy there?
Okay.
Muddy? Huh?
Some
your
parts
boots
are
on.
muddy for now, yes, and
It's
there
wetlands for
is.
the love of God.
Bring your
No, we're
boots.
not walking in the wetlands. I will point out that there
Having a
is,
northeastern tonight.
we'd be coming in off the peninsula, and there is a drainage swale there, and then there's also, there's a little drainage swale here. I think that was part of the original subdivision, and there is quite a drainage channel here that's deep that we do have to cross. So it's not wet, there's just a little bit of water. Wear rubber boots. I think.
Wear your
No
muckers.
dress shoes.
Yeah.
All right, so what are we looking at, Nadine? What would you propose?
I mean, we can look at the weather to see when it's gonna be nice. That's
So
gonna be,
November 15th.
the weather. app.
Exactly.
Thursday
It's
looks
never
good.
nice.
How about the
anymore.
first weekend of November? That would be November 6th. That hopefully gets us beyond, because, November 6th. Does that work for everybody?
November 6th
I
is a
don't know
Saturday.
yet.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a
Sorry.
Saturday.
Saturday?
Saturday?
That does
That's
not
not
work
good
for
for
me.
me.
That's not good.
Nadine's not
That's
working on
good.
Saturday.
Well, I actually, any Saturday I have nothing, but that Saturday I do have something scheduled.
All right, so you want to do the, we do have
Are
some people who
weekdays no
work.
good for planning board members? Is that?
Weekdays are
I think we
fine.
did it on a
Weekdays are
Tuesday
fine.
afternoon last time. It was like
That's fine with you,
11 and
Patrick.
1 and 3 and
Exactly.
5 or
I
something.
have November 2nd.
Sunday, the 7th? I can't do that, but
How about
not the
November
week- not the
2nd?
No,
weekend.
the
Second.
second, November
Second.
2nd.
Tuesday,
Election day.
Is that election day?
It
That's
is.
election
Oh,
day.
yes, it is.
that's perfect.
Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah.
All right.
Do it in the morning. Is that all right with everybody?
Two different-
Well, you
need a
gotta do
couple-
two different
need
meetings.
So
three
how about we
different
start-
people.
How about we start at 8 for one group and 10 for the other?
8.
Rick, you need 3 sections, 3
Rick,
meetings.
forgot when
I'm
I
there.
work
It
in
might be a
meetings.
little chilly, but I will be there at 8.
8 o'clock. No, what is with you in this?
How about
regular
11 and
system?
1?
How about 11 and 1?
No,
You go
get
to
up
8.
early.
How about
You go
9?
You
You
go
go
to
to
8
Yeah.
in the first group, whoever wants to do it.
And then
I'll do
and
8
then-
with Rick.
I'm
I'm gonna get a truck that week.
Eight,
Go right through.
All right, you know
8,
what?
10 and noon.
8, 10, and noon.
Noon.
Sign up for 8.
Oh,
So this is,
I will
Yeah,
just
guys,
tell
sign
you,
up so
2
you
hours
don't all
is
show
very
up at the
quick
same
to
time.
walk kind of where you're going and look around and come back. You really don't, it doesn't leave a lot of time, but we can do that.
You need more than 2 hours?
It's a
I'm not
big site.
saying more, but it's,
so.
I know, when I know where I'm going and I'm
bring
just
a horse?
walking in and walking out, it takes a good, I don't know, what, 15 minutes to walk? 20 minutes just to,
all right,
just to
look,
do
if
the walk.
anybody does,
not even
if
to
we
stop
don't
and
get
look
to
at
the
anything.
end of it,
8, 10, and 12 it is.
And we don't
8, 10,
have to,
12.
like I said, we won't go really past probably here anyway.
want to walk, I think we want to
Can
walk
drive in on
the other,
Rondell Lane.
Hmm?
We can ask the town board to increase our budget to have ATVs.
and ATV.
I'm
just gonna bring a horse.
where are we going to meet? At the-
On
car
Peninsula
do you
Lane.
have?
Peninsula Lane at the
Yeah.
end?
I'm gonna have a
Okay.
truck. I gotta
They-
pull
There's
that
a
right
cul-
now.
there's a turn
Order.
cul-de-sac, but there is
Order,
room to
order,
park
order.
on the side of the road as well.
Okay, so 8, 10, and 12. Who wants to go at 8?
I'm going at noon.
I'll go at 8. So Sam and I at 8.
Who else? Come on.
Who's going at 10?
Patrick, you're
Go
up.
to 10.
Patrick?
Patrick and Zora.
Shoveling
Zorian.
horse poop at 8
10.
o'clock.
I'll take the noon shift.
Noon.
I'll take the noon shift.
So
3 for
Mark,
noon.
That's when you guys are all
Okay, so
tired. We
you
only
have
got an
2, 2,
hour.
and 2, so. Anne
I
Marie
don't
can
know.
have
Those horses are on a
yours.
schedule.
You're coming though, right?
Oh, I'm coming. It's just
Zach,
that
when
I-
do you
I
wanna
have
come?
nothing to do with the quorum.
You don't want to
Noon?
say 8? Come on.
I'll serve it.
Yeah?
all right, this is what I have. Pay attention, everybody. I only,
Okay, go, please.
8 o'clock is Sam and I, 10 o'clock is Patrick and Zorian, noon is Mark, Maren, and Zach. So
We need to add
So
Anne
Anne
Marie.
Marie's gotta
Anne
do
Marie,
8
she
or
has
10.
8 or 10.
She's at 10.
And Liz will be with us at the noon. She said.
Okay, that's fine. She's not a planning board member, so that's
She
fine.
can
We
go
can have
whenever.
four.
She can go to all of
See
them.
you
Do you want
Yeah.
to
You're gonna go.
Mary
Spend
Lou.
the morning.
No, I'm
Spend
not
your
coming.
day.
I have
Hey.
plans that day.
All right.
that I
Things
do.
all
Tomorrow
my
we'll get a
towns are
buggy.
closed.
I'll bring a golf.
No, thank you very much.
Does
And
it-
Night owl.
Do you need anything else from us tonight?
Wide awake.
I don't think so. That was very good feedback. I appreciate it. I appreciate you all coming out. Do you want to add something?
I do.
Go ahead.
Okay, so there are a couple things along the way while I was listening. And one of them is, so I did ask for certain information to try to make the conventional plat a nice comparison because I felt that it really is gonna give you guys a clear picture toward, thinking more seriously about the conservation design, which I think you're already kind of partway there, but I think it's helpful. But then I thought I heard in the discussion, you felt maybe you didn't need any more information on the conventional map. Am I misunderstanding?
That's correct.
We
That's
agree.
correct.
So basically, I have comments for. So I just want to give Nadine some guidance. So I think 4 through 7, those are all about the conventional.
Yeah.
So is the board saying you'd rather not have Nadine have to address those?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
Yes.
that's appropriate.
Okay, so 4 through 7. Okay, good, that's very helpful. That was one thing.
Did you do the, you said you had attached a checklist? I don't know.
Oh, did it not?
I didn't get it. Now that we're on that page, I was like, oh, yeah, I didn't get
This. It didn't come with the PDF? Okay, then I will make sure you get that.
Okay, thanks. No, we can-
Okay.
We can keep track together.
Okay, so those are all NA. And then just quickly on the business of lot size, when I heard that discussion, 2 thoughts. Definitely the larger lots allow for separation between septics, which is important in terms of groundwater, maybe important in terms of groundwater, depending on the soils. You want them maybe a little farther apart. But the balancing concept to that is if lots can be smaller, it increases the likelihood that you're gonna have a larger, more connected hunk of conservation. So
Yeah.
that's the balancing thing there. I think That's
mean-
it regarding the visual stuff, I think. Remember that it's the largest number of viewers. So
I can't hear you.
the
Largest number.
visual assessment really has a lot to do with the largest number of viewers. I mean, obviously, a place that's scenic, if you can see this from here, that's important.
Right.
So think of off-site areas that you might think the site might be visible from. And the other thing is, Lucas, I don't know if the site's visible.
Part
It's a
of it-
large number
part
of
of it
viewers.
is, yes.
Well, that was,
kinda
that was
doubt-
my thought, is the ones that are on the knolls, if you're on Lucas, they're gonna see a house sitting up
Right out of the.
right out of the,
Yeah,
popped up
this,
on that.
this is not, this maybe,
A
it is
portion.
very, and we'll see when we go out there, but there is wood lines along
Yeah, exactly.
Lucas, and when you're driving down there, all of a sudden you're past it, and you're like, oh, wait, where was that big field? Because you can't see it.
Yeah, I'm wondering, when you stake
Yeah,
things,
look
is
over
there
the
a way to sort of kind of, like, if there's a stake here, that would need to be a reference point for the board if they're on Lucas?
Yeah, we
From
never,
different
we
parts
will
of
not make it,
Lucas.
oh, well, I guess
You
from
won't get that
Lucas.
far, okay.
Yeah, because we're.
But if
we're
you
not
throw some
closing
stakes
anything.
up there, we all go
You
down
can see it from
Lucas.
Lucas,
We
yeah,
can just,
yeah.
We
There's
know a
drive
stake
like
with a
this.
pink flag is
Yeah,
the driveway.
exactly.
yeah,
Okay.
the Road.
just stake it
Yeah, yeah.
there, so we'll know,
At least
that's
there's a
basically your
roadside.
view shed
And
analysis.
this is,
as we're
again,
driving
gonna be
by.
very approximate, because we just do it with GIS for now, until the surveyor.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
goes
that's
out.
fine.
Okay,
But
all right,
give
because
it-
in case something moves. I
You can
don't-
have somebody standing in the middle of a lot with a pink flag. or a red
Well, you know,
And
for
we'll
visual
drive it.
Really,
analysis,
really
that's the
tall
thing.
guy on a really, really tall
Yeah, we've
ladder.
got to put up some balloons, like, you're not gonna see anything, right? I mean,
Right.
it's just, you won't see a thing, but,
And- So for now, we're really focused on doing the site visits and not really concerned too much, but a little bit about getting another submittal at some point.
After,
After we
after
do
you
all this.
approve your sketch,
After we
that's when
do
you'll get
the-
the next
So
submittal.
you feel you have enough information now to do the
To
sketch?
do the
With the site
Site
plan, I
visit.
would.
site
L1 and
visit.
2.
L1 and 2.
To do the
where we're
site
at.
visit, yeah.
well,
and
you have to
we'll
approve.
enhance that existing conditions with some of these items that are on here as far as, you know,
Like some of
the
the-
additional slope information
Right.
and the high points and things like
It's
So
that.
just for dumb people like us, to do your heat map of slopes helps, because it's a lot easier to see, okay, yeah, this is, oh my gosh, it's going from this down.
You're basically
Like she's got-
saying it's okay,
I mean,
but
you can-
have to
if you're
Yeah, I
approve
good at
can't,
it.
I don't have that
Determined
capability.
from
but I
the
will
state plan
mark
Right.
them out
That this is the
anyway,
form of
as
development.
best as I can.
Right, so you'll determine.
Liz, you asked the
At the
question
next
and you
I
looked
guess
at us
I'm-
quizzically. Have you got a different opinion? If you do, please state it.
When I did this review.
Right.
It was with an eye toward, what do I think the planning board needs to kind of move towards? Do we feel really confident about going in the conservation way? So
We do.
that's all these comments.
We do.
Right?
And I
So-
think I know you probably spent time on it, but
No, no, no,
you've
I'm
heard
just-
everybody say tonight, forget about the other plan.
No, the conventional I get. What I'm trying to figure out is for the next steps.
I think we're okay.
The site visit and then no new submittal and then we just reconvene after the site. visit. Is
No,
that-
no, I'm gonna do a more enhanced existing
overlay.
conditions
Right.
map. I'm gonna show the
Okay.
conservation.
Nadine's got a lot of work to
without
do with
little
this.
lots.
That's what I wanted to get. clear
Yeah,
on.
Might
yeah,
I
I am
suggest-
That's very
address
clear.
these
Good.
things.
Okay,
for
good,
sure.
good,
May may I
thank
make procedural
That's all. I just
suggestions?
wanted to know
And
what's
and
coming.
clearly, Nadine, you may as well get started now, because I think you hear how things are gonna
Right,
go.
right.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
after you guys do the site visit between now and the next meeting, I would suggest that at the next meeting, if you're happy after the site visit, that you approve sketch. And then her next submittal after that will be all those things in L1.
Agreed.
So you're saying site visit, then come back and do sketch and.
Right,
then
because we
another
don't do that at the
Right.
workshop meetings.
Right.
So they can approve sketch at their November meeting.
Exactly.
And when we're talking
And
about
then-
sketch, we're talking about
and
this
then
sketch
maybe
or
get
subdivision
your
sketch.
Somebody's
L1
talking. Stop.
Gotcha.
on all the things in L1. And when
So
she's
you're
got
just
that
chilling,
all
right?
into
What you're-
us,
what
she'll
you're
bring it
looking at,
to
you're
us,
just
we'll
chilling.
review it. If it's complete, we'll set a public hearing.
Whoa, whoa, whoa.
And we'll start
whoa,
looking at all
whoa,
those good
whoa.
things. But it's gonna be a while, I assume, unless you're just,
I'm sort of, yeah.
So site visit, then sketch, then later a submittal.
Yep.
Go ahead, Julie.
So which sketch you're talking about? Very basic sketch of the
No.
terrain?
conservation.
This
This is a
Conservation.
sketch.
Basically
This
what-
sketch.
This is
okay,
called the sketch.
Okay, well,
This is a
isn't
sketch.
that called sketch as well? Another
No,
one?
that's a
No.
concept, that's just
Oh, that was
showing.
just
That was a
Other
conceptual to show a
alternative.
different way to do it. That's
That's
like,
just
That was a
showing the
dream.
That was like-
conventional.
that was
alternative.
backup.
Getting silent.
Subdivision sketch. essentially.
right. This is the subdivision sketch that we liked. If we'd all said this looked way better, then Nadine would have developed that a lot more and we would have trashed that,
This is
but we
very
like this,
helpful.
but we
Very
like this
helpful.
better. And this was just to see how it would look, so we could compare if it was a conventional.
Yep.
All right.
Good. Plan.
Okay. So here, so that there's no confusion, Mary Lou. I must have something about Mary
Yeah,
Ann. I call
about
Emery,
Ann,
Mary Lou, Mary
She's ginger.
is gonna send me an email with what she just said, which I think I got. I'll replay it, I'll gussy it up, and I'll send it out to the whole board so we know what the steps are. There's no time frame to any of these steps, except for the visit that we're gonna take place on November 2nd. All those steps. I don't know
I
how
think
long they're gonna take.
it's kind of helpful to have,
Okay,
for
but
everybody to know where
All
we're
right.
going and when.
everybody okay?
If it's raining, we do a rain.
Okay.
I
Jordan?
have a question
Race.
related to Lee's comment. You're right in that create aquifer district overlay. I'm not clear what's the purpose. Because
That's, we
I
have, it's
understand.
in there. It is already in
Oh,
our
it's already there.
aquifer protection
Okay,
district.
Yeah,
Okay.
and there is, different lot coverage, like 15%
Right.
impervious, that kind of stuff. We will, not a problem, we can add that on there.
is that on county?
No, that's
No,
ours.
not
That's
county,
our
I
law.
mean
We have
on,
140-18 is
No,
the
no, I understand.
aquifer
So-
protection overlay.
So,
There's a.
no, I understand, but where do I see that
There's a
particular
comprehensive plan for Rochester that does show like the,
areas?
it does, and it's not the
Okay.
whole,
So that
not on the
area
whole thing,
includes
but
this
the county
property.
does
If
show
you
it.
look at the map that
in
marks so
detail.
nicely, actually, Zach got tasked by Mark, it shows you your aquifer protection overlay on that.
It's crosshatched in there.
that for us, thanks, Zach.
Zach
Yeah.
got rope
It's on the, it's
Ah,
on the
okay,
zoning, it's on the
I-
comprehensive
You
plan,
see
and it
all
is
of
on the
that stuff?
county.
That's the aquifer.
All of that stuff, that
Cross
little,
hatch.
like that little poor person goes up like that, it goes down, it goes hard to see there, it goes like that. Pretty much the whole center of ours is our aquifer
Okay.
protection.
And this
How
is
they
the
doing?
property right here.
Thank you for training. me.
How are you?
We
It's
are,
there, it's in that.
it's this
that
one right there.
Okay,
So they're right in it.
all right, okay.
But since we're gonna get this natural resources map, all this stuff will be on that map,
Oh, yeah.
okay? Just so you know, you're gonna see all this stuff on a map, Jordan. That'll be color coded.
Okay.
Okay.
The greatest map anyone's ever seen.
We do
The
like
mother of
Nadine's
all.
maps.
All right, I think,
Yeah.
Nadine, if
Yes.
there's nothing else, go ahead.
Fortunately, there's one.
Okay.
So I did submit something in the EAF for archaeological. Now, on Mountain View Stables, obviously, they did all the lots that they did. And there was a letter at some point that looked at some of those lots, that those places never have to be looked at again, even when you go on to other things. So this is in a overlay sensitive area. So I wanted to see if that was something that we were looking for the phase one on
It's on the property,
the overlay
yes,
district is.
so we
Yes.
need that.
This goes back to.
That was in your EAF. Right, it was in the EAF, wasn't it? So you need to,
Okay,
all right,
all right, sounds good.
thank you
I
for
guess what I
your
was looking for is
forthrightness.
Some
you
writing.
must have had reports that led to that sign off, and
I-
that's,
I don't, but
Oh,
there
you
was, there
don't.
was a letter on the map and then, I think that was phase 4. And they had some areas that were highlighted on like lots, I don't know, what they were, 13, 15, wherever they were. It had some, but the language of it was
Did Mountain Fucking Acres do that, I think? You might want to check with them and see what they have. Because maybe they did do this and it was included. I doubt it.
Or would the town have it as part of the records of the?
I looked in the records.
I don't
today
think there
and
was
did not
anything
see it.
done on the remaining lands.
Yeah, I didn't see it.
Okay.
Okay.
Good.
Thank you very much.
The next thing we want to
Thanks,
do,
guys.
do we need a break? The next thing I want to do is spend a half hour just going over some of your recommendations. You want to keep going? You need a break.
Keep going.
Keep
Well,
going,
let's get
okay.
over with.
Says the,
Thanks,
says the
guys.
lady who wants to see
You
the
guys,
video.
you're gonna keep these, right?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. All right.
Thanks, Nadine.
Bye.
I'm just gonna, I'm gonna verbalize these recommendations. And I think I'll capture them all from the folks who sent me comments. The first one I'd like to get out of the way and is I'd like to keep the meeting at 7 o'clock as it has been. I thought about, well, maybe 6:30, but I just feel that there's enough people who I've asked who said 6:30 is a wee bit too early, particularly when there's still work to be done in the fields or work to be done outside. I'd like to leave it at 7 and not change it to 6:30. So that one's done. Always input down the road, but let's leave it at 7. And it's mostly because I want to be respectful of the public as well as ourselves, but respectful of the public. And it does seem to me that, you know, people come home from work, they get home at 6, whatever, and they got to rush out without dinner, gobbling down dinner, or they just make it late. I'd rather they have the opportunity to have another half hour, so we're going to keep it at 7. I'm attempting to, a lot of recommendations around why does this project keep coming to the meeting? And we keep telling them the same thing over and over again in terms of stuff that needs to be done. So I've been working with Nicole. Maren started working on some of these projects, and I have turned down a number of projects that said, gee, we'd like to be on the agenda again. And I just said, no. I said, you got a letter, you got a post meeting letter that Nicole and myself and Maren has helped with, so because she's so knowledgeable of it. And we've simply said to them, you didn't do what we asked. You're not coming back. Somebody wanted to do a site visit. Won't say who, and I said, no, your sketch plan wasn't even acceptable, much less why would we be doing a site visit? So I hope we can keep it down to the next time you come to a meeting, the stuff that we asked for, you're gonna have, and you're gonna have 2 weeks before the meeting, not at the meeting. And made it clear to 2 people, if you have an objection to what we asked for in the letter, you gotta pick up the phone and call Nicole, and she'll get in touch with me, and I'll quote you, and that's it. But it's not something that I made up. It's the board saying we need the following stuff, so it's not like I'm gonna make an exception. It's the board, go back to the board. So anyway, I hope we can stop with the, I just want to be there to say hello and to say hello, and that's it. I think Nicole is getting the agendas out at least a week and trying to get it, a draft agenda, if possible, a week and a half to 2 weeks ahead of time. Not always possible. But I think that there was.
2 weeks is tough because you don't
It
get the
is
stuff.
You
in
don't
until
get the
2
stuff
weeks.
in.
But
It may-
certainly-
A week is
Make
great.
sure
A week is very nice.
So it was coming out a week, it may have missed a couple of times, but, and it'll be stamped draft, because like tonight, we canceled somebody. So there might be something in the actual agenda that's been taken off, even though it's, so that's why it'll be stamped as a draft. I'm training myself and Nicole to write up the agenda, so that there's a little bit more in terms of verbiage. The first agenda that I sent out had none of the verbiage. It just had section, block, and lot number, and that was it, and what it was. I'll add some material so that you know what the project is and the public knows what the project is. And I want to get Nicole to a point that she can do it just by reading the description that comes in from the applicant, as opposed to the chair doing it, but I'll do it initially, as Maren did it initially. So I hope that takes care of that set of comments. These comments here are, and I absolutely agreed. For example, I feel that that projects are just coming in with the same old exceptions, and we're going through the same old stuff. Why are they coming to the meeting without having done what we asked them to do last time? So that's going to be fixed. Things that, well, okay, so that's the same as what I already addressed. In order to make better use of Liz, lot lines, I'll do in terms of the write-up, or Marion will do. She's volunteered to do simple lot lines, continue to do those because they're easy. I'll train myself to do them. But beyond that, minor subdivision, division, major subdivision, soups, special use permits, anything else, I'm not spending days on end writing this stuff. I had experience doing it with one project, if you remember what the hell was it? The 24 pages from the animal sanctuary. And Maureen's been writing them all herself for 3 years. It's like, no. So I'm asking everybody up front when they come in, if it's a lot line, great, you pay your fee, and that's the end of that. But beyond that, I'm asking them for escrow money so that I can cover just a quick review by Liz to say, everything's here, chair, we're good to go or not. Or after we get beyond that point, so that Liz can say, I'm going to send you your first review letter, like with Malatesta or DeJager. Or Liz does the write-up, or all three of those things. So I'm asking for enough money to cover all three of those things. In most cases, it'll be covered by $500 to $1,000. That is, everything's here, chair, let's give it to the board, and then the write-up has to be done at the end. That should be able to be done with under $1,000. But the Malatesta, the DeJagers, the Ridge Views, it's gonna be a lot more than that, so we're gonna ask for a lot more. And Liz is gonna be more a part of our process to ensure that we have the appropriate planning expertise advising this board, and we have Liz do the write-ups. I can guarantee you the write-ups are not going to be 24 pages. Liz has already told me that. But
The
she's already,
decisions, not the write-ups, the decisions.
she's already showed me some examples of ways in which she does write-ups for other boards, which are more summary in nature.
Resolutions.
The
Yeah.
decision.
Decision.
Decisions, what did I say? I'm
Decision.
sorry.
Right.
Decisions, I'm sorry. That's right, decisions, the findings and the final decisions. So I think the board will be pleased, and if we want more, we'll work through it. It just means we need to be cognizant of the more that Liz does, the more that's going to be charged to the applicant. And is this additional information really necessary in order to get the intent of this board
Do
on
you think it's
paper?
best that we have a price sheet on the front
I'm
end of
work-
the application side?
I'm working on a
Because-
price sheet, but a price sheet needs to go to the town
Right,
board.
that's gonna have to, he's asking people to voluntarily put up escrow so we can get started.
No, understand, but I'm saying if I wanted to do I'm using the Jagger as an example, a 14 lot subdivision, probably should be a price on the front end that says, hey, this is
That
gonna
would
be
have to be approved by the town board.
$5,000 or whatever. I know town of Warsaw, they all have
Yeah,
sort of a price
right,
sheet.
but that's all,
I think we should,
has to go through the town board, and Rick and Mike have spoken about.
Good.
Going there.
Mike is in agreement that we need the price sheet.
Yeah, it should
In
be
the
up
meantime,
front.
he's also in agreement with voluntarily
Asking
kind
what-
of. So Nadine, if you want this done, you got to give me money. That is what it boils
yeah,
down
I
to.
think it's good that you're talking to Mike. I think we should also formally send a letter. Didn't we already send a letter to this effect like a year ago?
Yeah,
We
did.
should remind them of our
ask them to
previous
reduce-
letter
yeah.
and
We did.
urge them, we're doing this in a way that makes us less comfortable and we think serves the town interest less well. And
And it really gives the applicant a little bit of an understanding going, whoa, this is gonna be X amount of dollars before I even get started.
They
And
know
we should-
what's
and
involved.
we
yeah.
should point out that we've asked for this before.
Right.
We asked last February
Yeah.
for this, and it was ignored.
And I've also, Rick and I've had conversations about this. I think one thing to think about is that if somebody comes in and they have a decent submittal, can keep them moving down the road. And that's why we had discussions about, for 500, I show up, do a verbal, attend a meeting. And then they do a submittal.
Well, I think.
So when I have, at public meetings, when I've quoted, this is what I think, I'm thinking, the submittal I'm gonna review, the next meeting where it gets discussed, possibly another submittal review. That's the way I'm thinking down the road, having represented applicants, I know that they like to keep moving. So, that's another way to think about it, that's all.
Well, there's a difference between just give us some comments, is everything here, and that's it, and do the findings and the decision, right, do the write-up, that might be $500, $600, $700, $800 versus the Jaeger, which is going to be a
So
big
much
ticket.
for you.
big
Well, and
ticket.
Mary Lou, you have experience in other
You're
towns.
shaking
They-
your head no,
they-
Liz. We had this discussion. Tell me what your issue is.
No, I mean, for $500, if I'm looking at something simple, I'm thinking, I'm looking at the code to see what does and doesn't apply,
Right.
showing up at a meeting
Right.
and discussing my findings verbally. I think that's
Right.
what you and I talked about. And
Right.
then they make a submittal, and then I do another look at it. And if it's that simple, they might have to do another 500. I think 500 is low. I'm being realistic with you. I'm not trying to sell
Well,
CPL service.
That's
know
why
we're
that's why we're
watching-
back at the $1,000 that you weren't having a
Yeah,
circular
and I
logic
don't, I'm
here.
not arguing. I'm just saying,
It's sort of 500, I mean, because when you started, it's 500
maybe it's
review
like chunks
stuff.
of 500.
and
you know
then-
what I mean?
A decision is pretty much 500. Like, if you just outsourced it to the Philippines, it's using the Philippines, if there's a decision part, that would just be the 500 and nobody be redoing the reviewing. So the grim reality is it's gonna be $1,000-ish bucks, even if you're doing like the Schneider subdivision, a line down the middle, period. end of
Can I give
discussion.
just a suggestion? I know other towns, and Mary Lou, interject if you have more knowledge than I do, which in the situation you do, I think, is at the application time,
Mhm.
they take, town of Warsaw,
Yes.
I'm using them as an example.
Yes.
In order to do a 2-lot subdivision, you pay $1,000 for the application and $2,000 for planning and planning
Exactly.
input, and I think it's $50 per lot, something along those lines.
Yeah, I don't know the exact
Right,
thing.
but there's
yeah.
a price sheet that
There's a
says, if you're
schedule.
doing this, it's this much.
Well,
And you
maybe-
give that at the time of application. If there's
maybe-
more money, then that's something
Then
that
we
needs
do
to be
the
worked
Maybe
out.
when we resubmit this letter to the town board, maybe we can have a draft price sheet that we're suggesting to the town board as being appropriate.
Right, and CPL
Did
and
you
the
get that
town
one?
have to,
And
Huh?
maybe
Would you
samples.
get me that letter?
Maybe
Would you give it
samples.
to
Or
me?
Only
maybe
sample for the old one, I'll give you a copy of the old one.
Yeah, the old
Maybe
one.
a sample of what other towns are doing.
right, I know
same
like
things.
Hurley does that, I know Warsing does the same thing. At the time of application, you're required to give X amount of dollars. It'll never be more than that. That's just how much it costs. So if you want a 2-lot subdivision, it's $1,000 for the application and $2,000 for the planning work. That's it. There's
No,
no
that's,
more money.
no,
No,
that's not it. That's
No.
not it. That's
Still
your
more.
initial
That's
escrow.
correct.
Yes.
And if you have
Initial
something like the
deposit.
Jaeger, that's gonna be cost
Then
a
there's,
lot
that's
more.
gonna be quoted. at
And
the time.
that's not just their planners, that's my fees also.
Sure.
So Liz, I know for my fees, the town board does not charge the applicant for any time that I'm at a meeting. They charge over an hour review, and I know for you, it's the entire review. If I have to review outside for over an hour, that's what they charge. But my time at the meeting, they do not charge the applicant. The town pays me. I don't know if there's a
We're
different
not- we're not
arrangement
on- I
with
don't think we're
CPL.
on- We're not. on
CPL only is
retainer.
escrow.
I'm not on retainer either.
Oh,
They pay me hourly.
So that's something that you addressed in asking the town board to put up X grand,
I asked them
Mhm.
So
for
we
X
could-
grand in the budget,
Right.
which we could
which
use.
would do the
Mm-hmm.
same way that Mary Lou
And I'm not
is.
sure what was, well, I don't think.
I
it's
think that's a
approved
great
yet.
idea.
So
But I
It
wanted
just
to
gives
ask-
Right, and that will
eye-opening to
cover-
the applicant, that's all.
I asked,
No,
I
I
asked them,
agree.
I asked them
It
for
should be that.
$5,000 in order to have money to have Liz assist
Attend the
us.
meetings or
Attend
whatever.
the
Or attend
meetings.
meetings, whatever the case may
Right.
be. For that matter, running around, to have somebody run around to all the towns and gather all the information. Yeah, I could do it, but Liz knows all these people,
You could
5-minute
ask
phone
Nicole
call.
to do it. It's just a phone call. Can you send me your escrow?
Or clicking
sheet?
on their website, a lot of them have.
Yeah, all you wanna
stuff
know is
right
their-
on the
Yeah.
website.
But Nicole
fees.
can do it. Yeah.
Yeah, Nicole can do that. too. Okay, so Maren, if you can get me that,
I'll
I
get the old
do
one, yeah.
remember it from
Mhm.
Yeah.
3 years ago. I think.
Send it every month until they. do something.
Exactly.
All right, so let me keep going.
Back.
Bum, bum, bum. This was an interesting one. So somebody's going to have to teach me. There was a comment about being more inviting to the public. So somebody's going to have to teach me the proper way of pronouncing accord or accord and schoolmaker or
Schoonmaker,
schoolmaker
Accord,
and
Pawtucket,
Osterhout or Osterhut. So you just have to, I will ask the old timers for advice.
I'm an
around
old
how
timer.
to
Just
pronounce.
ask me.
Just pause and let Mary Lou fill it in.
Yeah,
That was my technique.
that's right.
When I finally got medical
She'd look
hunch,
at
I'd
me.
be like,
She'd look at me.
I love to hear Pawtucket.
Now
Well, it
you're in
was funny
America.
because at a regular town
Yes.
board meeting, Mike Baden said, Pawtucket. And I went, oh no, oh no, it's like the Shawgums, it ends in an M, even though it's an NK.
So I do want to make this not a painful experience for the applicants. Even if they don't give us what we want, we'll make it nicely
Still
painful.
spell-
that
say
they-
their name correctly.
But I do want them, I do want them to feel welcome. I also don't want it for just pure lot lines. It's like, okay, fine, we can run through those real easy and we don't need to collect a lot of the way of fees. It's,
But we don't, but that's not on
We
the
don't.
Liz, whatever.
Right,
We already
but we won't
established
be
that.
Moving on,
reviewing
right.
those unless there's
That's
something
not
crazy.
reviewing it, so we don't worry about it.
and then the other comments that I got had to do with the time, so I'm gonna leave it for now at 7. I'm not sure why the town board changed to 6:30.
And if it makes you feel any
Um,
better, when I started here,
It was.
it was 7:30.
Yeah.
The meeting.
So there are other groups that do 6:30.
Well, the problem is if you've got an applicant that's coming from Poughkeepsie or
Yeah,
whatever, they can't make it.
yeah, it's
A
very
lot of
hard.
people work until 6. You
Or
can't.
board members.
or
that
board-
commute.
I mean, I don't really care about the board members as much, seriously. We're doing this, we want to be more amenable to the public.
We're
Yeah.
doing it
For the public, we have to make
And if we
it so
start at
somebody can
6:30, I
have.
guarantee we won't get home any earlier.
It's true, we'll just keep going,
Right.
right? We started at
So let's
6:30, we had
try
one
it.
All right,
application.
we done now?
And I am gonna, I mean, this is just, I am gonna insist, and I'm probably the biggest violator, on one conversation at a time, just administratively, so we will listen to each other. And try to stay on topic. So I didn't stay on topic tonight, and, but I'm the chair, so.
I don't wanna
Yes.
talk-
You wanna,
It was very good when we did what Sam had suggested, where you
Yes.
just go around the
Right,
table
right.
when
God,
that
you
was
took the
chair.
words out of my
Round
mouth.
And that stops the interruption. You just say, not your turn.
thank you.
Where
I
you,
will-
you, you say it for, I mean, that's on the applicants in the G drive also, exactly the
Mhm.
protocol that Sam went through.
Yeah.
That chair summarizes, applicant does a presentation, boom, boom, boom.
Happy to be
around the
the
whatever, and then
enforcer.
after that, if you're the enforcer.
Yeah, I
back
tried
there.
that tonight with me summarizing the young lady, the dean spoke, and then it was kind of like a little bit of a free for all.
Well, it's a
Yeah.
little different.
I do
now,
like
it's in a
that, the
workshop,
plan.
but-
It's just that sometimes you'll say something which triggers something I forgot to say, and then
Right.
Zorian will say something, because Liz mentioned, and it's like, maybe we need to go another go around.
Yeah, maybe,
That's what it
exactly,
is.
exactly, do another go around like that, but doing it, especially if you're doing
Yeah,
it that way, when you have a contentious civil engineer that wants to continually interject, that helps. This was not one this evening, but unnamed ones, that helps. He's like, no, this is the order we do it in, and Sam was very good at saying, it's not your turn to talk with this.
Right. I like the idea of going around again, though, because
Right.
I think
Yeah.
It helps.
You
Right,
can do
I-
like old Saturday Night Live, point counterpoint.
Yeah. And it also,
The
if,
question is moot.
if they're really easy ones,
That was a
then it
different
just goes
step, yeah.
fast.
Right.
You know, they're really, no, yes,
sorry?
you've
That
got
was a
something,
different step.
and then you can shovel them on the way. It makes us.
Shovel.
So
Makes the
Sam,
easy
you're gonna be
ones
the
easy.
enforcer.
If you'd like me to be the enforcer, and I think also thinking about, this is maybe, I'm showing my generational cards here, but using a circle process as much as we can.
Using a what, Sam?
A circle process, which
Start on
is
one
like,
side.
well, but it's also you go around, like no one speaks out of turn, and we can enforce it with applicants too. And then if we need to go around 3 times, 4
fine,
times,
sure.
you can, and people can pass. But then it's like, it's a little less,
Sergeant at arms, that's what you can do.
and I'm happy to be the implementer.
Are you getting?
The
are you getting the
re-implementer.
hammer?
And then,
No, that's
No.
Lauren.
What else you
The
got?
hammer's never.
and the
come out
only
of
other
my
thing I
house.
have is, I think I mentioned this
Make your own
before,
hammer.
is that Nicole is making sure that we get 5 sets of maps. And that when another map is submitted, we want another 5. We'll throw
Yeah.
out 4 of the other ones and keep 1. We want another 5 maps. So that the board, if they want to come in and get a map from Nicole and review it at home, they can, or at the meeting, we've got enough maps that we're not jumping over the table to look at this person's map or grabbing it out of somebody else's hand. So there will be maps available. I don't have a problem with people taking it home. Just make sure you bring it to the meeting. And I'm not giving you another map during the course of it. Bring it back to the meeting.
Great.
Okay, and that's it. So anybody have any comments on administrative stuff that I forgot? I think I covered.
I just
all
want
the
to make sure
comments.
that the letter that we're gonna draft to send to the town board about
Pricing.
pricing, that we're all in agreement to include like a proposed pricing schedule. And we feel that we can prepare that, like with help from Liz
check.
or asking Nicole
Right, I'll
to check
take
with
what
other towns.
Maren did already. We'll do a review of other towns. I'll have Liz look at it for,
I'll look at some other
reality
towns
check,
where
and I'll bring it to the board, for the
Yeah,
board to review.
Because I think the
before.
more, or rather the less work they have to do, the more likely they are to vote on it.
Good point. So you won't have it for November 8th, but you'll have it for the meeting in December. All right, I'll take a little bit of time. to put it together.
Yeah, that's great.
Right.
All
Then
right.
we have it for the new year.
Any other comments?
No, did you want to ask them about the seeker
Pizza party. yeah.
question?
Oh,
Yeah,
thank you.
yeah, that was it, the pizza.
Mary,
party.
Mary Lou volunteered to do
$5,000.
a seeker summary / training in December or January, because we're almost in December, already,
Right.
probably January. But she wants to know from the board, what are the things that confuse you about seekers? So if before the next meeting of November 8th, you could send me some questions on around seeker. I have quite a few. But if you could just send me those, and then I'll send them to Mary Lou. She'll know what to address in her formal training. Do it in a workshop meeting, all right?
Did you
And
say
of course-
December or January? Or we weren't sure?
I think January.
Probably January, just with.
What impact will ballot proposition 2 have on CETA?
Write it down.
I'm
Right.
very confused.
All right, so if you could do that in the same way you gave me.
And I have
administrative
one
comments.
more comment. There's a new law in New York State
Hey, new law.
that if we are doing considering a resolution, and we have that resolution, it has to be on the website 24 hours in advance.
Including for us. Like,
Yeah,
as the planning board, it's not
yeah,
just town
it's
board.
not just town board. It's
It's
when
good
they're,
for the IT people.
when you're
So our decisions have to be out there on the,
on the 24 hours in advance of our meeting. So, I mean, Liz gets them to you by then anyway,
so what does
So-
it have to be
Website?
out on
on our website
the
So
town's
Starting when?
website?
When
Yeah.
does this go into effect?
now.
24 hours.
Does town board know about that?
I think Mike knows, but I'll let him know because 24 hours will be,
And it has to be posted or just saying that we're
Woo!
going to have a resolution?
no, the resolution has to be
The actual-
posted.
Oh, boy.
Probably a PDF.
So
Who
Mary
can
Lou,
sue
our
to enforce
findings
it?
and our decisions.
Can I
our
sue you?
Resolutions.
Exactly.
And are my legal fees recouped by the state of New York?
Hell no.
They're not doing like the bounty hunter style?
Thank you.
Yeah, no, this is.
Yeah, exactly. How can we, exactly,
Do we
how
not
can we
normally
sue
have
or enforce it and
resolutions
get the
that-
money back ourselves?
We don't normally have them that.
Oh, God, no,
No.
we don't have anything, we don't have anything,
You're lucky
0.0,
if there's an agenda up there.
Yeah.
right.
Okay, that's the town board's challenge.
Who's
We will do
liable?
it.
I mean, well, and sometimes
Are
they're,
we personally?
you
Like
know,
that.
sometimes you don't know there's gonna be a resolution till that.
Yeah,
night.
exactly.
But if you know of it
advance?
in
No.
advance, like,
Oh, I see.
you know,
Like we know we're making a decision
What is the
next month.
definition
well,
of
although I
Yeah.
would say
The
that,
epistemological standard here.
well, I would think that, you know, you don't want it, if you're pretty sure we're gonna have a
If it's
resolution,
been circulated
to
in G drive,
approve
that's
some-
evidence of knowledge.
if you are going to, if you're pretty sure you're gonna approve something, but after a public hearing, I don't think you wanna put that out, because you really need a public hearing before you
Right.
form an opinion. I think
But
that
if
would
it's a
be,
draft, is it?
We never have, well, we never before you did, I never ever even had
right,
any,
you would hand them out,
it was only
That
until that
evening.
public meeting
Until it was
was
closed.
closed and
right,
whatever.
right, you shouldn't have a draft before you've heard the public hearing.
And just the draft. comes
Right.
into
So that
existence.
sounds like Mary Lou, that when we have a public hearing,
But if you
can't
say
read
we
the
close
finding.
the public hearing, but we're not making our decision yet, and then you have a proposed resolution
for the
for the next meeting or the meeting after that within your 62 days, that resolution should be on the,
I think that's what we're gonna have.
That's
to do.
reasonable.
So
I'm
that's,
so
so
glad
that,
I stepped
so
down.
that kicks out everybody's decision for a month.
Or-
Yeah.
well, you
it's-
have to, no, you can write it on the fly, you know,
No, but
No.
if
if
you
there's
have to,
one that's
if you have,
proposed.
Oh, so we have them all done in advance with the exception of the last word?
Wait a minute. Patrick. Go ahead, Mitch.
if we have to go through the process and close it, there's no way that it's gonna be published.
Right.
ahead of time. So
Right,
they're gonna
but-
have to come
But
back.
you can make a resolution up that night. But,
That's
I mean, you
basic
could,
resolution.
it's, I'm not, a lot line
It's
adjustment.
not saying you should.
A lot,
Just
if
saying
somebody
one
wants a
could.
lot line adjustment,
Yes, we can
Or
have
you
a
could have a
resolution.
you can
template.
make a resolution that night. It's the same resolution you always
Right,
make.
yeah.
Like a Mad Lib.
We could
You
fill
could-
in the Mad Lib.
You could
Template.
do that night. You don't have to put it in advance. You know, I
But that's
suppose
just a
on
lot.
that you could because there's not a public
You're right.
hearing.
That's
That's
just
crazy.
a lot line. That's fine. But for everybody else, they just got another month added because
Yeah,
welcome to New York
Potentially, yeah.
State.
Well-
every,
This is
except.
why
for-
everybody moves to Tennessee, Patrick,
Welcome to New York.
Florida.
and Florida.
Oh, gosh.
Mary Lou,
Exactly.
in Kent.
Okay, well, on that,
Motion to
I'll
Motion to
adjourn.
adjourn.
entertain a motion to
Second.
That was
adjourn.
not on the website, though.
Who made the motion?
I did.
Sam made the motion. Who seconded?
Second.
Mark
You don't have to
seconded.
vote.
That's
All in
not a
favor?
resolution,
Aye.
that's just-
Anybody opposed?
No,
Do not vote.
What's the
We got
difference
you out
between a
with the
motion and a
appointed.
resolution?
not a whole hell of a lot.
Are you off YouTube?
Trying to figure out how.
Yes. What?
I have a fun.
Hey, if I told this, somebody.
And
All right,
if
you want
anybody,
one minute?